Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Oleski with JMOR, and I'd like to welcome everyone to The Upside. Our show is about to begin today. To maximize your experience, we recommend that you put your Zoom screen on speaker view. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce two wonderful co-hosts, Beth Goldsmith, Chair-elect of the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, and Dr. Scott Rifkin, publisher of JMOR. Scott, take it away.
Welcome to The Upside. This is our third virtual show brought to you by the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMOR. And if I get this right with the camera, my head won't be cut off. So you're seeing just the bottom half of my head. It's sort of big, so that's a problem. But brought to you by Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMOR to keep our Baltimore Jewish community informed during this time of the COVID infection. Beth?
Thanks, Scott. Yes, as Scott said, we are trying to keep you educated. We're trying to keep the community together, and we are trying to answer questions that you might have, the burning questions throughout our community. That's why we're having a different expert every week. In fact, we are showing twice a week, Tuesdays at noon and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. So please stay tuned and encourage your friends to do the same. Beyond these shows, of course, we are still continuing our regular lines of business. The Associated and its agencies are truly on the front line, addressing the economic and social needs of our community at this pivotal point in our 100-year history. We hope you continue to stay connected with us as we support the most vulnerable in our community.
Thank you, Beth. Let's spend a minute or two with a little bit of a local update, and then we're going to jump to our guest. We have a wonderful guest today, and I'll talk about that person in a second. The other thing is I want to talk a little bit about where the community is with this infection, and a little bit about, give you a little news on the listenership or watchership or viewership, whatever we want to call it, of this show. It turns out we had about 1,000 people in the community watch either live, a few people live, some live, but mostly on Facebook and elsewhere. And we're really encouraged by that. 1,000 folks in a show that just got started. It's really great. So thank you all for your support. The second item is where are we in the community real quickly. So I want to take a minute. If you've been watching the headlines nationally, there is an increasing number of deaths. There is a big push for opening up of various states. And there's a lot of pushback by the scientists about doing that. So let's just be aware that we need to keep the social distancing going. In Maryland, we've had a lowering of the number of new cases, but an increasing number of deaths. And that's to be expected because there's a lag time. We had Jonathan Thierman from the ER at the Life Bridge last week, and he talked a little bit about this. But that's to be what you would expect. I suspect the number of deaths will start to drop in the next week or two. But again, I really caution everybody to stay careful. Don't listen to the issues about opening up too aggressively. Stay safe. Okay, so today, and thanks for taking the minute with that. Today we have a wonderful guest. We have Joan Grayson Cohen. Joan is the Executive Director of Jewish Community Services, which is an agency of the Associated Jewish Federation. Jewish Community Services provides employment, financial and emotional support to members of our community struggling during challenging times. Joan will talk about staying connected in times of isolation. Joan, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Beth? You want to?
All right, I'll start the flow then. Joan, it's great to see you. I wish we could be in the same room as we're so used to being. So I guess we'll start at the basic. What are you seeing at JCS when it comes to how people are reacting to social isolation?
So Beth, great question. Scott, I'm going to go back to what you spoke about social distancing. So social distancing has been excellent in reducing the numbers of COVID-19 viruses, but what it has done is escalated people's emotional and mental well-being. And that is really what we're seeing. So we started to provide all of our services remotely as of March 17th. And in the first 6 weeks alone, we received about 900 calls. And many of those calls were as a result of increased stress, anxiety, feelings of isolation for those people who may have never experienced that before. And we also received lots of calls from relatives worried about their, especially older adults living in their homes alone. Do they have the things that they need to eat, to have medication? How are they doing feeling alone? And those older adults themselves have called with lots of concerns about how they will survive during this time.
So I mentioned on the show last week that the head of the emergency room at Columbia Presbyterian, or one of their hospitals up in New York City, committed suicide after having to make critical decisions on who got a ventilator, who didn't get a ventilator in that ER. Tell me a little bit about your interaction with healthcare workers, and not just healthcare workers, but the other people that are going out. Some of us are fortunate and able to stay totally isolated, but there's a lot of people who get on a bus to go to work every day, or are working in a crowded environment where they have to go to work. Talk a little bit about your interactions with those kind of folks, if you would.
So actually, some of those folks are even our own staff. We have 9 group homes under the associated system and that we manage. And those staff are there 24/7 working directly with our clients. And we still have staff ourselves who are going into clients' homes to service them. So those are, as you've described, those frontline people. And there's lots of issues that arise for them, one of which you've identified already, Scott, which is this feeling in some ways of extreme hopelessness and having the inability to continue to serve the way you want to. We know that we'll probably see after this some post-traumatic disorders because of being put in this stress and strain for so long. We, of course, are helping to address that through our therapy services, which are offered across the community. We have been reaching out to many entities to offer our services and supports, especially for those frontline people who need the extra care. And as I said, I think we're going to see even more of this when people get back to the quote unquote new normal, because when you're going through this, you don't even realize the inordinate stress that you're under and the toll that it's taking on you.
And that's really helpful. Let me give another example. My parents, they're 92 and 88. They live on their own. They're used to having a caregiver who comes into their house a couple times a week and helps with my father. My mother, who's totally competent and totally with it, is now struggling to provide all the care. Talk about what you are able to do for folks like that.
So what you're speaking about is really a special entity of individuals, caregivers. And one of the opportunities that we've offered during COVID-19 is community lunch bites, where we've spoken about a variety of topics. I, by chance, happen to do the topic on caregiving. They're all able to be seen still on our JCS virtual library. And I know we'll talk a little bit later about how to access all of that. But it's really critical for caregivers at this time, first of all, to take care of themselves. And that's not so easy to do ordinarily, let alone at this time. And now that many of these people might have been caring for someone, but then were able to leave and get some respite to care for themselves, to clear their minds, and right now that's not possible. So there's lots of things that you can do. One is, if your loved one can be alone for a little bit, take at least 20-minute intervals throughout the day to get away from that individual, to have some time by yourself, whether it's to read, to listen to music, to just take a walk outside if you can. If you can't leave your loved one, someone you're caring for, and that has really caused a major issue, we've spoken with many individuals who are in that boat right now, then maybe there's things that you can do together. And I always say that music is really a window to your soul in some ways, and that we use music often to feel better. And if you can't leave your loved one, pick some musical pieces that you can together sit and listen to. And what it does for the caregiver is it's calming to them. Even read a book. And if your loved one can't understand it, or they can't read with you, reading the same book, read out loud to them. Engage with them. It's a way for you yourself to be calm. And the other piece is it's incumbent upon us as relatives and friends to reach out to those individuals. You know, for you, Scott, call your mom, call your dad, do Zoom and Skype meetings with them, FaceTime, so that there's human interaction even while they're stuck inside. And even when your mom might be feeling more pressures right now to care, you know, for your dad in an unusual and stressful time.
And that's very helpful. Beth, feel free to jump in if you want. Otherwise, I'm going to keep badgering our nice guest.
Well, you know, I'm gonna take a turn if you'll let me, Scott.
Go for
Thank
it.
you.
Go for it.
Joan, yes, I know because, as I said, you know, we meet and speak pretty frequently. I know that there's some real, if we could call them successes, some very positive things happening that we are able to do. So if you could talk a little bit about, one, sort of talking about working remotely, how are we treating our clients now that we can't see them in person, and also some of the things that we are doing in this community that are already bearing very positive fruit.
So Beth, thank you for that opportunity. So as I said, when I first started to speak, all of our services have gone remotely. I'm incredibly proud of our staff. And that means all of our therapy services, our career services, our case management services. We're continuing, of course, to provide financial assistance. It's even needed more now than it has been. And that's true for our career services. If you pick up any paper or you listen to the news, you know, thousands and thousands of people have lost their jobs. So we are so fortunate to be able to continue all of those services. Ironically, in this time, we've gotten several people jobs already because new jobs have opened up because of COVID-19. As I said, there has been an increase in anxiety and stress for people who've never had to go to a therapist before, now find themselves needing that support. And we're able to provide all of that virtually through telehealth services. Additionally, sometimes people are calling with just a question, you know, about the stress of working remotely when your children are home, or how to care for an elderly relative. And we're offering brief consultations around that as well. Our staff who are specially trained either in older adults or children or teens, they're able to communicate about that. We're also continuing to provide food for individuals at this time. And that is, of course, the request for that is increased. We provide food cards, and those who absolutely can't get food, we've managed to get food items to their homes. And one of the other services is friendly calling. You know, feeling isolated now, it doesn't matter. Sometimes even people with families in their home, because of the dynamic of their families, they need that extra support. So we're reaching out to people and calling people regularly. And of course, this is true for all of our existing clients, but for all the new clients that have been calling because of COVID-19. And we suspect that this will go on for quite a long period of time. And as I said, I'm really proud to say, we have 24-hour staff in our group homes where adults who have developmental disabilities live and couldn't live but for our services in those homes. So everything's still continuing. The requests are increasing. The needs are even greater. And you know, Beth, you talked about how we see each other all the time. And you know, I think this conversation today and all the services we're able to provide is really the strength of our whole associated system. And we're an agency of the Associated, but we really couldn't do this without this huge partnership and to continue to service the community at this really critical time.
Joan, it's Jonathan here, and we have a question from a Facebook viewer, which is great. And they say, what's the best way for someone who has never received your services before to reach out to you for help?
So great question, easy to do. We have a main number, which is, I'll say it slow and I'll say it twice, 410-466-9200. 410-466-9200. And in partnership with the Associated, we have become the community helpline All you have to do is call that number. You get a live person who answers the call from Monday to Thursday from 8:30 to 5, and on Fridays from 8:30 to 3. And they will be there to help you think out what's the best way that we can assist you. Also, you can go on our website. We have maintained a COVID-19 resource list that's updated daily, and our website is jcsbalt.org, and there's a tremendous amount of information on there related to COVID-19, but all of the virtual programs that we're doing, they're on there as well, so you could see them well after. And I know Scott mentioned the viewership for these programs is great, is greatly increased, and a lot of that is people seeing it at their own leisure. You're able to do that on our website as well, and we're offering support groups virtually for grief and for caregivers, dementia, and again, all of the scheduling for that is on our website. So that's the easiest way to get help very quickly.
Thank you.
Wonderful. It's always nice to know that we're getting questions from the audience. So feel free to submit those, and Jonathan will bring them to our attention. Talk a little bit, if you would, Joan, if you don't mind, about two groups that are clearly need some attention. One is the question of family and spousal abuse or child abuse and those sorts of issues. And everybody's crowded at home together. And is that causing an increased incidence? And the other is, I think the group that's the most affected, I don't know most affected, but clearly has a lot of issues with this whole isolation is teenagers. And they're used to a very social environment. They're very hormonally driven, to say the least. And maybe you can talk a little bit about those two topics.
So absolutely. So the first group that you mentioned, those who are in domestic violence relationships and child abuse issues are happening in the home are of great concern to us. We are one agency that deals with it, but in the system is also HANA, the agency that deals also with domestic violence. And there has been an increased concern of that because, as you said, people are stuck at home and there's nowhere to leave. There's no respite for that abuse. There's no people to turn to that might identify what's going on because now you're stuck in close quarters. I know that recently HANA has increased their services and has created a special line so that women or men or anyone in a relationship who are abused, certain hours can call directly on a safe line. And you certainly can access that information through the HANA website. And we see some of that certainly in the relationships that we're working with as well. And what do we do about it? So we have given certainly helplines to individuals, and we work with people around safety plans. So safety plans in ordinary times would include leaving your home, going to somebody else's home, but now we have to be innovative and create different kinds of safety plans for individuals. So it's very challenging. We're quite worried about children who are in homes where child abuse occurs or even domestic violence because they're a product of that. They witness that, they hear it, they feel it. And it's much harder right now to get to those kids. So I know any of those children who are in those homes that we're still working with, we're working with them through telehealth and trying to provide some supports to them at that time. But you raise a concern that's on all of our minds. In terms of teenagers, it's a very important issue that you raised. They are also very adept, you have to remember, at technology. So they have created all sorts, thank goodness, of creative ways to connect with each other at all hours of the day and the evening, and probably in the middle of the night. So the social aspects are certainly were a challenge that I think they've all figured out quickly. What we're really worried about in our prevention education programs are working on creating material, and some of it's already up on our website, to address what will happen actually after we all open, because children and teens will have been pent up in environments which either may have been concerning, as we just discussed, or just environments where they're not used to being for long periods of time and having that direct social access. So we're worried about what risky behaviors they might engage in when we get back to, and I'll put it in quotes, the new normal. And we're allowed to reduce social distancing and be with one another. So we're quite cognizant of that and creating programs that will bring into schools and for parents to help them understand these issues and to be on the lookout for them when we get back to, as I said, a little bit of the more normal connection with individuals.
Is there a way, Joan, for us as lay people who are not trained to actually know if someone in our family or a friend is having difficulty, that perhaps they're not speaking out about it, but what signs might we be looking for to know if someone we know is actually having a problem that they haven't shared?
Yeah, and you're raising a great question also, because one of the best ways to notice difference in people is to obviously physically see them, because they may not share with you, they don't want to burden you, they're embarrassed about, what's going on with them, etc. So I would recommend a few things. One is staying in contact with your loved ones and your friends by phone, regular phone contacts. Create, times when you can Zoom together. I know in our family, we have two of our girls who we brought home from New York, but one of my daughters lives in Baltimore, and we do Zoom dinners with her because we want to see her too. We want her to feel connected to the family because we're all together. So those times are really, really important. And the kinds of things you look for are increased signs of stressors that could manifest themselves in not eating as well, in not sleeping as well, in pressured language where people, speak very rapidly and they seem agitated, where people look tired. And I recommend asking people, how they're doing and doing a little bit of checklist. If people are on medication, are they taking their medication? And looking for all those signs of changes. If people start to talk about being isolated and sad and helpless, those are obviously red flags about having a further conversation about how they're doing. And I would have a regular phone tree or Zoom tree of individuals checking in on people. It doesn't have to just be burdened to the daughter or the son, or a friend. Create these phone connections where a phone tree, or as I said, a Zoom tree, where multiple people are having eyes and ears on an individual, and then communicate with each other about how you think the person is doing.
Joan, I have a question here from the audience, from Larissa here on Zoom, who says, our schools are focusing on e-learning for our children, but I'm noticing that there is not a lot of focus on social and emotional well-being. What should parents with young children or older children focus on? Great question.
It is a great question. I think, again, similar to how I just answered Beth, really look for signs of change in how someone either appears, do they physically look sadder? Do they look thinner? Are they not eating as well? Do they seem to be in their room and isolating themselves more? Are they disconnected from usual relationships that they might have been engaged in, socially? Maybe they're not as comfortable doing some of the virtual programming that their friends are doing. Maybe they were a child who liked only one-on-one, and maybe that's harder to do now. So looking for all those and really listening to people about what they're saying. And, are they saying things that they, as I said earlier, feeling more hopeless? We're never going to get back to school. I'm never going to have friends when I go back. I'm never going to be able to interact the way that I wanted to because of all that's going on. Maybe they get angrier with you as the parent. Look for signs of anger, some signs of frustration. Whenever we're stressed, adults or children, we're going to manifest it in certain ways, and we're going to be shorter with people probably, and more frustrated in the way we're speaking. And sometimes parents are scared to ask their kids, hey, what's going on? They want to keep good boundaries, or they feel that their child's too angry. Finding the right times to have those conversations is really critical. And some of those right times used to be when we were stuck in the car together. But you can't be stuck in the car for so long periods of time now. But maybe take a ride, and, look at the horses out in the valley, or, go somewhere and in that car have that conversation. Or sometimes at nighttime when people are calmer, say goodnight and have some of those conversations together.
Thank you.
Beth, thank you. I'm sorry, Joan, thank you. Beth, do you have any other questions?
I would just like, I always like to give our experts the opportunity to share anything that we haven't already queried you on that you would like to share with the community.
So I would like to reiterate again that JCS is here for you in so many ways, and all it takes is that phone call, the 410-466-9200 call. And I just want to leave, if it's okay, with just a few more tips. I know we're so worried about people being isolated, and I just want to say one of the real critical things is wake up each day and develop a routine for yourself. And have that routine, if it can, include exercising in whatever format that takes for you. It could be from a chair, it could be exercising your fingers, whatever it is. But include that, include a connection, at least one or two, maybe if you have, with an individual that day, and then incorporate activities into your day, whether it be an art project, a TV show. But the more that you take control of your ability, of the things that you have ability to do, the less you'll feel lonely and isolated. And again, if you're feeling that way, just call us, 466-9200, and we'll be there to help you. Beth and Scott, I want to thank you so much for having us on your show. And even if we've helped one person, then we did a good thing today. So thank you.
I suspect you've helped way more than one. So thank you. I truly appreciate it. Beth is going to have some closing comments in a minute, but I did want to talk about the future for the show. May 15th, this May 15th is the traditional date where people start most of their vegetable gardening. So at some point in the very near future, we'll figure out what show it is. We're going to talk about how to start a garden. Of interest, I saw a couple articles that the hobby that has picked up by far the most during the social isolation has been gardening. The seed stores and the mail order places that supply all those things, they can't keep them in stock. So people all over the country are seeing that as a nice family activity. And it's a neat thing to do, and gives you this feeling of life renewing itself. So gardening is kind of interesting. So we're going to have a show on that. We'll probably have a show in the very near future on the nursing homes, which is a real nidus of the infection and is going to continue to be for the near future. And many of us have relatives or friends that are in the nursing homes. It's easy to blame the nursing homes, but the reality is it's like a cruise ship or a military barracks. People live close together, and the rate of infection is tremendously high. Part of the reason the numbers have gone up nationally is they're getting a better handle on the nursing home numbers and what's going on there. So let me turn things over to Beth, and it's all yours, Beth.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to add my thank you to Joan. As I said, it is good to see you. Thank you, and please give our thanks as well to all of your colleagues, to everybody at JCS and the other associated agencies who truly are as hard when they could be in a room together to make sure that our community stays safe. So thank you. And today is a very special day, and I'm sure many of you have been getting emails, requests from all over, from many different areas. So let me just remind you, today, May 5th, is a day of community, unity, and giving. It is Giving Tuesday now. And if you want to participate, I'm giving a plug for the Associated by saying you can tell just by listening to Joan. The other night we had Mark Terrell on. If you want to know that any dollars you contribute are really going straight to helping people in our community, the Associated is a fabulous place to make that donation. So, and I should tell you also that we have dollar for dollar match going right now. So any money you contribute will be doubled. You can call 410-369-9300 or go online to associated.org/Giving Tuesday now. So thank you for participating by listening and learning and sharing all the knowledge with your friends. And if you also can give something more, please go online now and make that happen. Jonathan, did you have anything?
We thank you, Joan. Thank you, Scott and Beth. And remember everyone to join us Thursday evening at 7 o'clock for our next show. And be sure to share the show on your Facebook feed. And it was very informative. Thanks again, Joan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay well, everyone.